Hello, you're listening to Tony Slattery's Rambling Club, and you're most welcome.
Oh, hello, my name's Paul Carmichael.
And I'm Alan Lear.
And you join us in the shed already. We were hanging about, loitering, awaiting for the president, but he hasn't actually shown up yet. So we're in the shed, killing time, really, aren't we, Alan?
We are. I mean, I don't think he's gone far. There's an empty 8-litre bottle of Coke here that is still warm. So I think he may have been... Oh, hang on. There's something just held down under the bottle. Ah, here we go. I've got a post-it note.
Oh, what's it say?
Well, it's in quite atrocious handwriting. I think it looks like he's written it with his left hand, as if his right hand was still busy for some reason. And it says... Still no. Still urinating. He's still urinating.
Still urinating? Good God.
PTO. I'll turn it over. Apologies for dampness of post-it note. Oh, bloody Tony.
Oh, lovely. Right, well, we haven't got the president for the week, so I'm not...
Oh.
Alan, listen, can you hear that?
Ooh.
That sounds like a very familiar sound effect, but not quite familiar enough to get us done for copyright by the BBC.
That's convenient.
Good God, would you look at that? It's Sylvester McCoy. Sylvester, thank you for joining us on the Rambling Club.
My pleasure, absolute pleasure. It's wonderful to go rambling and not have to move.
It is, isn't it? It's a magical thing that we can do.
What will they think of next?
So, well, Sylvester, what we should do first of all, I think, is introduce you to our remarkable bingo machine. Now, it's a bingo machine that sounds not unlike the lovely Stephen Fry, and if we give it a bit of a turn, then we should find ourselves transported, as if by magic, to the great outdoors and to our first subject. So let's give her a whirl and see where we end up.
Tony's enchanted bingo machine. A curious contraption of cogs, levers, and glowing buttons that hums with ominous energy. This machine generates 3 completely random numbers. These numbers are fed directly into the Dewey Decimal System, the arcane reference system by which books and their contents are categorized. In this way, the bingo machine conjures from thin air a topic of conversation so enthralling, so wildly unexpected, that it leaves the members of the Rambling Club both bewildered and vaguely excited. Thus, another evening is saved from the brink of boredom, thanks to Tony's marvellous, possibly haunted and entirely inexplicable bingo machine.
Well, here we are in the great outdoors, ready to begin our first ramble, and the numbers are...
4, 7, 1.
471. 471. And that means that the first subject that we have to ramble about is... Classical Latin Writing and Phonology.
Oh.
Now, immediately, Sylvester, I should say at this point, this is usually where I say, Alan, this is probably for you. I didn't go near Latin at school, I'm afraid. I wish I had, but I didn't. But classical Latin writing and phonology.
Well, I did Latin and Greek at school. The reason was I wanted to become a priest. So I went to a seminary outside Aberdeen on the River Dee. And the reason why I wanted to become a priest is I grew up as an Irish immigrant family in Dunoon, and our teacher at primary school was Rosie O'Grady. I mean, you could make that up. James Joyce name. Her name was Rosie O'Grady, and she had a pigeon-chest woman who used to torture my uncles and my mum at school when they were growing up, but softened by the time I'd got there, thank God. Ooh. Anyway, we're in 11th plus, and she gave us a vocational talk, 11 plus. We would get the bin man would come in and enthuse about his job, and then afterwards she would say, "Who wants to be a bin man?" And I put my hand up because he sold it to me. And then we'd get a doctor, and then the same thing would happen. I put my hand up, and others would as well. And then the captain of the paddle steamer, etc. And then the last one to come in one week was a priest. And of course, me and Danny Sweeney put our hands up, and something happened. Magical happened then. Razor O'Grady said, "Right, you can have the afternoon off to go and tell the priest you want to become a priest." Now, she hadn't told us we could do that to be captain of the paddle steamer or a doctor or anything like that. But we were delighted anyway to have the weekend, the afternoon off. So Danny Sweeney and I set off to the rectory. And as we got there, Danny kind of went, "I don't think I want to be a priest." And I said, "Oh, you're a coward. Of course you are. I'm going to become a priest. I'm going to show you." And, something like that to Danny Sweeney, not to become a priest. So I knocked on the door and said, "I want to be a priest." I was in, and off I set on a wonderful adventure, which took me to a seminary in the Highlands of Scotland. Well, I was living in Dunoon, which was one of the gateways to the Highlands. But anyway, and I loved it. I loved the whole... It was... Years later, I did a kind of a wee documentary on it. I met one of the priests who used to teach us, and he said that they thought of the seminary as a bostel for Catholic boys because it was so bleak, comfortless,
Spartan,
and Spartan, up at 6 a.m. and doing all that stuff. Yeah. But I loved it. But then I decided when I was 17 or something that I wouldn't become a secular priest. I'd go and become a Dominican monk. So we set off and applied. Forms were filled in, agreements were made, and then I was leaving the seminary. But when I got home, after a letter arrived, said, "Oops, we made a mistake. You're too young to become a monk. So you have to go to the local school." Now, the local school was Dunoon Grammar School, the only school in that part of the Highlands. And I went to it, and it was a mixed-sex school.
Oh, wow.
So suddenly, I decided, rather than wear a skirt, I'd chase it instead. And so all hope, all desire of becoming the Pope went out the window.
So was that it? That was the reason?
That was it for Greek and Latin.
Are there any other stories? Because obviously we get classical Latin, we think of the wonderful stories. Any that immediately spring to mind?
Can I remember any?
The Aeneid and the Iliad are the big two, aren't they? The Virgil's epic poem cycle.
There seemed to be, I remember lots about Julius Caesar as well. Then the Latin side, there was a lot of stuff about Julius Caesar. No, my problem was that I am kind of dyslexic. So when I thought these two new languages came into my life, I was top of the class for about 6 months, and then suddenly it went. No. And so I remember the Latin teacher saying to me that I had reinvented English because of the way I spelt it. But one thing, I remember a wisdom that the Greek teacher said to me once. He said, the Greeks were so civilized, they invented television, realized how appalling it was and got rid of it. So that's what I took away from it. But she sent, because dyslexia didn't exist then, so they wondered why I was kind of had this problem. So they sent me to a Catholic psychiatrist. Now that seems to me a contradiction in terms, because you've heard the thing called God's will. So why do you need a psychiatrist? If you're mad, that's because God's will. Anyway, I went there, and he kind of interviewed me, and I chatted, and he showed me this picture of a bicycle, a drawing of a bicycle, and he said, "What's wrong with this bicycle?" And so I counted up all the spokes on the bicycle and said, "There are more spokes in the front wheel than the back wheel." And he got really angry at me because that wasn't the answer he wanted. It was on the wrong side of the road. So he then said, I was just lazy, and sent me away. But why wasn't I lazy in other things like, history, all the other things, history, art, mathematics and science and all that, anyway.
No, I found exactly the same thing, Sylvester, I have to say. And then I was diagnosed as dyslexic when I think I was 24. But of course, by that point, a bit too late to do anything about it, really. But
I know, yeah. Well, I'm the same here, really. I mean, I managed to con my way through it. And when I get tired, it comes out more. But I manage when to.
Yeah.
Tomorrow I'm working in the studio reading a script.
Early night then. So,
Yes.
so how did you make that leap then from the priesthood and wishing to be the Pope to acting? What was I mean more in terms of what was the sort of decision-making process for you that made you think that you would do that?
Well, the thing is, acting. When I was Catholic and I went to church every Sunday, there was this man with amazing costume on a stage
Right.
with an audience,
Mhm.
and that I think that was in the background of my thing. I thought, wow, that's what I want to do. I want to have got because it's, all the world's a stage, and especially in a Roman Catholic church, and so I think that had a background thing to the priesthood. And when I was at the seminary, a priest once said to my granny, who kind of brought me up, who came to visit, that I should be on the stage, because I think I was showing off, doing stuff in the seminary.
Well, I'm pick you up on one thing though, because of course the little Shakespeare quote. I can't miss this opportunity to say, what was the experience like of playing the fool in King Lear at the RSC? Because that's a hell of a difficult part to get your head around anyway. So, what was that experience like? It was Ian McKellen, wasn't it, as Lear?
Yes. No, it was. I was delighted really to do it because I'd watched lots of Lears before, and the fools, and some of the great actors played the fools. But what really kind of I always thought was weird was they were never funny. And I thought, wait a minute, why are they not funny? They were serious all the time. Well, yes, it is a very serious part, but where's the fun? Well, we've been playing in Stratford for about. We did lots of previews, and Trevor Nunn came in one day and he said, "Listen, I've seen many, many fools play Lear," he said, "but I've never seen a fool get so many laughs." And that delighted me because that was one of the reasons why I wanted to do it, to get that to make, because then the tragedy is much deeper. If 1 minute you're laughing with the fool, and then the other part is falling apart, watching his beloved king go mad. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That contrast, a much greater contrast. So that made me very happy to achieve that. Someone once said, what are your favourite roles or something like that? Well, I mean, in television, it has to be Doctor Who. I mean, it was just one of the great roles, and I was privileged to play it. In film, I suppose it's playing Ranagast the Brown wizard in, the trilogy. That was, I think that's a peak. And then in theatre, it definitely was playing the fool in King Lear with Ian McKellen. I mean, he was a pain in the neck. Now, the reason for that is he's very tall. And I spent 1.5 years touring with him around the world, looking up to that man every day and twice on Saturdays. And then I ended up in The Hobbit with him for 3 years. But God.
It's literally a pain in the neck.
Indeed. For me, anyway.
When we were talking about, because you mentioned Greek literature as well as Roman, and it occurred to me that Homer, the Odyssey, is Doctor Who. If it's Doctor Who with the technology of the time, it's islands instead of planets, but it's going to distant planets, meeting strange new creatures, outwitting them, and getting away again.
Exactly, yeah. No, it's very true. Well, you see, people have often asked me, why is Doctor Who so popular? And my theory is, they say there's so many, 5 or 7 stories under the sun, and mankind's genius is to take these stories and retell them in a multitude and millions of different ways, and entertain us and educate us with these 5 stories. Now, one of these stories is a God sending his son down to earth, and this person takes on the form of a human being and fights against evil. I mean, 1,000 years before Christianity, in Egypt, the very same story was being told. The God there came down, and he created miracles, brought people back from the dead, and then he was put to death. He wasn't crucified. But I mean, this story, also in Indian religious mythologies, this story is keep being told. So Doctor Who is that story. The Iliad is that story. Do you know what I mean?
Well, here we are, another location and brand new numbers, and those numbers are
3, 5, 1.
351.
Another 3. We've been heavy on the 3s recently.
And that means the subject is the law of central government. Law of central government.
Is there any law in central government? I think they've broken it. Well, at least the last law, they broke it, didn't they?
Absolutely.
Joyfully. Parties.
Gleefully, yeah.
It's a strange situation, isn't it? Because obviously, like the vast majority of us, we're all following the rules and doing what we can. But to know that people weren't, I mean, you can't help feeling rather cheated, can you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it'd be quite extraordinary. I mean, possibly Johnson, mini-me Trump, you know, kind of the lies that he tells. And it's extraordinary that suddenly I've been living through a time when we used to say politicians always lie, but they didn't really in a way. You know, they had to hide things and all that. But then the last 14 years, they have practiced lying truthfully. That's quite a good phrase. Yeah, no, they've truthfully lied again and again and again. And it was wonderful watching Trump with Macron yesterday or today or last night or whatever it was. And Trump lying away, as usual, and Macron correcting him. And then, as soon as he corrected him, Trump came back and told the same lie again. We live in a mad world, my masters. It's a mad, mad world.
We really do. It's that strange thing, isn't it, where it seems to be if you repeat a lie enough, then it will eventually become accepted truth.
Well, that's what Hitler's, what's his name, propaganda man?
Goebbels?
Goebbels. Was that the one with no balls? Anyway, yeah, or here's small ones, I'm not quite sure. But anyway, he said he was the one that defined that. And fascism rose and took over and nearly destroyed Europe. And the same thing will happen now if it's not stopped.
It will. There's I was reading something a little while ago. Somebody was saying there's a distinction you can draw between lying and bullshit.
Yeah.
And the difference is that liars want you to believe what they say.
Yeah.
Whereas people like Johnson and Trump are bullshitters. They don't care if you believe them or not. The point is just to be saying it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of shit piling up at the moment.
But what changed? You said 14 years ago, Sylvester. What was there anything in particular that happened where suddenly this became acceptable? Because I remember politicians, I hated some of them as a child when I saw them on the television, but you got the feeling they were at least being honest, even if they were saying that they were going to screw you.
Yes, that's true. I absolutely agree. That's what the impression, I mean, but this lot came along and they just kind of celebrated it in a way, just lying. And they must have been going back and thinking, wow, I got away with that. People believed it. People believed Brexit would be better. Leaving the biggest economic market would be really good for us. Because what will happen when we leave is that all the prices will go down, the hospital will get more money, blah-diddy, lie-diddy-lie. Lie-diddy-lie-diddy, lie. And they just kept on lying and lying and lying until they can no longer stop lying. It's wonderful at the moment. Now, I watched the Prime Minister today talking about raising money for arms, and sadly he's taken it away from development, which I think might be short-sighted. But anyway, the thing about him is he's really boring. But you believe him. I mean, I really believe what he says. He's serious. And what's the name? The lady, Badenoch, or I'm terrible with names.
Yeah, Kemi Badenoch.
I mean, she kind of tries to carry on that lying Tory thing and rumbustious and saying things that are really over the top and are impossible to achieve. But he just slaps her down in a very wonderful, boring way. Bring back boring politics, I say.
I agree.
Absolutely, yeah. And the reason we're hearing so much about the small boats these days is because the Tories that particular Tory government, they were too stupid to realise the whole Brexit thing, they shot themselves in the foot with it. Because for 40 years, if the Tories didn't want to do something, they lacked the political will or the initiative or the basic mathematical competence to achieve something. They just said, Europe won't let us do it. And people believed them.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they got rid of Europe, and now suddenly they've got nobody to blame.
And also the racists that voted for having, we don't want Romanians or Poles or, those kind of white people that speak a foreign language in our country. And then suddenly they all go home, and we need people. And where do we get them from? Places where people are brown and black. I mean, it's great. I mean, I think it's wonderful, really, because I live in London, a multicultural city, and when I go out every day, there's all sorts of cultures, all sorts of languages, all wonderful food and everything, and I welcome it, brilliantly. But the racists, let them enjoy it, bastards. I was Irish once. I come from an Irish background. I came down to London in the 60s, and they had those posters up on the window: no blacks, no Irish, no dogs. So I made sure they knew I was Scottish, because that was I discovered the English class system. Because in Scotland we didn't have much class. There was just the Scots and then 4 or 5 families that ran the place. So that was kind of how it was, really. But when I came down here, I had a very posh name, Percy James Patrick Kent-Smith. And because it was double-barreled, I went to a youth employment office, and they sat up because of this double-barreled name. I grew up in a room in a kitchen. The toilet was down the stairs. My mother was a war widow. I grew up in kind of... it wasn't poverty, because luckily it was just after the war, and the Labour government had come in and made sure that people didn't starve, you know what I mean? So anyway, I grew up in that, but I ended up with this very posh name. So it got me into the city of London. And of course, being a Scot, the prejudice of the English was the Scots are hard-working. Oh, right, really hard-working. Well, they got it wrong with me. And so I soon dissuaded them of that ridiculous, kind of racism and snobism and classism.
Wasn't there? It was the Scots are the engine room of the empire.
Yes, they used to say the Scots took time off from making whiskey to run the empire for the English. That was a saying that went around.
Yeah.
But then I discovered the class system, which really shook me up. But I took advantage of it. I had this Irish friend from Dublin, Liam Woods. He was a genius. We were in reinsurance. He had gone to the top of reinsurance in Dublin, came to London, and because he was Irish, they thought he was thick. So they kept giving me preference over him. And I was the one that was thick, and he was the genius. So those stupid people, well, they could have made millions from him. They most likely lost millions from me.
Well, the Irish are getting their own back now, though, because the City of London, given 2 equally qualified candidates, one of whom is English, one of whom is Irish, will now choose the Irishman. Or the Irish woman, for the simple reason that the paperwork is much easier because the Irish person has a European passport.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, no, I agree. It's mad.
Sylvester, can I ask them, because we're talking about law of central government, but when I think of you as a performer, and certainly when I think back and I think of Tiswas and things like that, then I think anarchy. And when I was watching all of this anarchy unfold in front of me, was it genuinely sort of like spur of the moment stuff that you were doing as a performer on television in those days?
In a way, Tiswas, yes, especially Tiswas, because that was anarchistic. I mean, we used to meet on Friday night in the bar of the hotel next door to the studio, and everyone got drunk and in the morning had a hangover. And the mugs that they drank out of tea, that was not tea that was in there. It was like the night, and it was anarchy. When I first did it, the very first time, my whole back seized up in fear. I thought, because it was so anarchistic, I thought, I'll never do that again. But then they came back and asked me to do it again and offered me more money. And so I did it. And then I grew to love it. It was when it went wrong that the magic happened, I realized. And it was improvised in many, many ways, improvised. Yeah.
And not unlike the work that, of course, you did, the work you did with Ken Campbell, because I saw something online recently, and were you with the Ken Campbell Roadshow in Kirby, when Kirby really was a new town?
Yeah, Kirby was a new town that had died, really. I mean, what happened was there that Liverpool Arts paid us money to go into Kirby for a week, to work in pubs and working men's clubs and the street, to entertain Kirby for a week. And when we were doing it, we were followed by one of Murdoch's papers or something like that. I can't remember it. People or something like that. Anyway, it was followed by a Sunday paper that Murdoch owned. And I used to explode bombs in my chest, set light to my head, and bang nails up my nose and stick ferrets down my trousers. And there was the end. They published that in the paper, but the headline was, now because we got money from Liverpool Arts, they said, this might be fun, but is it art? Because, of course, you know, they wanted to attack the arts for entertaining working class people in a working class town and all that shit. But we were distraught, and then someone said, "No, it's really good publicity." But what happened was, overnight, people started sticking ferrets down their trousers all over the country. They were sticking 23 ferrets down their trousers. They were on the television. Now, we made it up as a stunt because we were doing stunts, and Ken had kept ferrets. Decided he'd like to give a gift of a new stunt to the stunt world. And so that's how we ended up with ferrets down the trousers. I had a secret pocket. My problem was trying to make sure the ferret didn't go to sleep because it was all warm and cozy. And after I did that, I had 2 sons. So there was never any problem for me. But other people were doing it for real.
Here we go then, third location and third ramble, and the numbers are
9, 2, 0.
920, 920, and the subject is... First parts make sense, but then, well, here we go. Biography, genealogy, insignia. Biography, genealogy, insignia. Now, what's interesting here is occasionally, Sylvester, we get something where, for some reason in the system, it just says no longer assigned. And just because something's fallen out of fashion. But whatever followed, biography, genealogy, and insignia, 921 is not assigned or no longer used, but so is 922, 923, 24, 25, 26, 27, 928. It's followed by a score of things that must have been, well, removed from the system for some reason. I don't know why. However, biography, genealogy, insignia. Genealogy. Has anybody sort of looked into that, the whole thing of actually trying to find out where you came from? My Uncle Robert did that and found we came from a tiny Scottish island called Lismore. And apparently a lot of American tourists get very excited about visiting the clan, so they can be charged an awful lot of money to buy tartan. But I've never looked into it that much myself, other than to know the basics of where I come from.
Well, yeah, funny enough, yes, it was done for me and my son, he's done it for himself, really. I've got a very posh name, Percy James Patrick Kent Hyven Smith. The reason for that is that my father was a Cockney. He'd been born in the Old Kent Road, and then he got bombed out in the war as a baby, and then came to Pimlico, where they lived in a council flat. So, but had this incredibly posh name. So I tried to go, where did it come from? Well, I met these 2 Cockney and their cousins little cockney little sisters who never got married. One was Ethel and one was Rose or something like that. And one started the conversation, the other finished it, and vice versa. I was in a pantomime down in Richmond. It was one of those Dickensian nights. The mist came off the river, and I came out of the stage door, and these two little ladies come out like from a Charles Dickens film or book. And so we went for tea, and I said, where did this name come from? And they said, well, their mother had told them that years ago in Ireland that there were, in those days, if you wanted to make your way in the world as a lad or that, the only way was to get out and join the British Army. So there were two great friends who grew up with each other in this village. But the problem was you were not allowed to serve in the same regiment if you came from the same area because of mutinies and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, nice. That's interesting because, of course, in the First World War, they had the opposite policy. They joined up in gangs from an area.
The pals, yeah.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. So, but anyway, maybe this is because this is a result of what I'm going to tell you. Anyway, so these two friends went to the recruiting officer. One was named Paddy Kent and the other was named Seamus Smith. And he went and said, hello, my name is Paddy Kent Smith, and this is my brother Seamus Kent Smith. We want to join the army. And so that's where the name was born.
Oh.
And I don't know if that was a true story, but then we did the genealogy thing, and the Kent Smith pops up in the middle of Ireland. That's when it first came to being. So it could be true. And I love the idea that that's what it was. And I had a great-great-grandfather who was in the Raj, British Raj. He made his way up to be sergeant major, or as far as any working class guy could get to in that thing, and married in India. And my youngest son has kind of when the sun comes out, he looks kind of as if he comes from around the Mediterranean. I keep thinking, oh, I hope my grandfather married a local. That'd be lovely.
Yeah.
That is fascinating, isn't it? When you see the features coming out in your own children, which aren't yours, but you recognise them. My eldest son, because on my grandfather's side, I'm distantly related to Basil Rathbone, who played Sherlock Holmes.
All right.
But in profile, my son, who's 20, there's a photograph of Basil Rathbone when he's at school, when he's about 17 or 18, and he's the bit of my son as he is now, and it's, but no direct connection, just the genes working away in the background.
I know, it's magical, isn't it? It's wonderful.
It is.
I mean, we are all made up of so many different genes.
The thing I know about my lineage is, it's not a definite fact, but it's kind of a frequently considered story. Is my dad has a condition called Dupuytren's contracture, which Bill Nighy has got. And what that is the tendon in your hands, which controls the last two fingers, the ring and the small finger. That tendon.
Swedish.
Yes, exactly. It's apparently it's on the Norse bloodline.
Yes.
You're likely to have Viking or Swedish ancestry if you've got that condition.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what they say.
What's it? Oh, wonderful actor who I used to work with. I'm so bad at names. God, I'm so bad at names, especially now. What a frustrating thing. There is a famous actor's got it too. If you watch his films, his hands have gone like that, and and he's got Swedish background. Yeah. Well, I've also got a Swedish thing. Well, it might not be a Swedish thing. I've got hemochromatosis. Now, what that is, it's too much iron in the blood.
Yeah.
And it's the west of Europe, Norway, Western Scotland, Western Ireland. My theory is that nature, like sickle cell, that was invented by nature to help protect people in Africa from malaria, from getting stung. But now in modern times, it's no longer required because, of various different reasons, people. And it's the same, I think, that I've got too much iron, but I don't need it now because I can live in the wild west of Europe without the help of it, if you know what I mean. And therefore it's become a problem. So that's a kind of a thing from, Sweden.
Yeah, but you think it's kind of arisen historically because perhaps it was a population that didn't get much iron from their diet, and they became better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think
Yeah.
it was that. It was something. And then the Irish came along and invented Guinness, and you no longer needed it.
No.
Which I'm no longer allowed to drink because I've got too much iron in my second blood.
Oh, of course. Yeah. They used to recommend that new mothers in hospital had a bottle of stout a day to replenish the iron they'd lost.
Absolutely, no. It is. That's it. It's very good for iron, but it's not good if you got too much of it. Every now and again, I've got to go and give an armful of blood. So what happens is they take out nearly a half a litre of blood, and in it there is iron coming out, and then the other iron that's left in the body then starts to remake new blood. So it's a kind of like bloodletting. It's medieval thing.
Yes,
to deal with a medieval problem.
Well, the other part of this, incidentally, is Insignia. I'm not quite sure what we would do about that. And anything on Insignia at all? I'm trying to think. But
Coat of arms or something? Is that what you mean, Rob?
well, I suppose so. Yeah. I mean, well. If I could ask one quick question, I very clearly remember, Sylvester, you having a T-shirt which you wore on Tiswas with your name on, but it wasn't Sylvester McCoy. It was Sylvester McCoy. How did the R come about?
Well, what happened was when I was touring around, some places they call me Sylvester, and other places they call me Sylvester, on bills and billboards and things like that. And then I was playing Stan Laurel in a play, and Stan Laurel was Stan Jefferson and was not doing very well. He was touring America. Charlie Chaplin had made it, but Stan sadly hadn't. He had this Australian girlfriend, and she was into numerology. And she looked at it and realised that Stan Jefferson added up to 13 letters. So he changed his name to Stan Laurel, and then everything happened for him. I don't believe in all that bollocks, but it did for him. Anyway, I looked at my name and thought, Sylvester McCoy was 13 letters.
Uh-huh.
So I added the R to take it out. And in a way you could say things changed, because after that maybe I got Doctor Who and, you know what I mean? It was like... Anyway, that's why it changed from Sylvester to Sylvester. It was thanks to Stan Laurel's girlfriend. But just another tiny little story on that. We did the play. I had done it in Nottingham, and then we did it again in London at the Tricycle Theatre. And the first night I came off the stage into the bar, and the group of friends were there, and with them was this lady, and they said, "Do you know who this is?" And I was like kind of hyper, and I thought, is it the wife? I've forgotten, I can't remember. But it turns out it was Stan Laurel's daughter.
Oh, wow.
Which was amazing. And then she came, and she was over here to get married, and she invited me to the wedding party.
Oh, how lovely.
I mean, I was slightly disappointed she didn't ask me to give her away, but that would really have been, kind of a really grand thing.
Oh, and biography-wise, is there any temptation to write a biography, Sylvester, of the family and get everything out there for you?
Well, yes, I did actually try once quite a few years ago to start it, and then I got to a point. I don't know why I was when I was at the seminary. I was 12. They took me to see an opera, La Bohème, which had a deep effect on me. I wept at the end of it. And so I remember, and I was going through, and I got to that, and then suddenly a light bulb went on, because I was training to be priest, but if I look at my life, the journey I went on was a bohemian journey. And I think that opera, what it said to me, and deep down, is all I wanted to do was to get to the left bank of France. I never quite made it there. I got to Belsize Park. That's as good as any. And I lived in the 60s around the hippie revolution. I lived in this amazing big house, 3 big houses full of bed sits, and there were poets, junkies, prostitutes. It was Bohemia, in Bohemia and Belsize. And I suddenly realised that it was because of that opera. And then you thought, the power of our business, the power that we have unintentionally a lot of the times, it can change lives, can put you on that route. Doing Doctor Who and going to conventions all over the world, I meet people who come up to me and say to me, I'm a doctor now because of watching Doctor Who, or what do you call it, Silicon Valley. Met guys there who were influenced by Doctor Who to get into that kind of world. And other people have said, I was going to commit suicide, but because Doctor Who was on Saturday, I couldn't, obviously they weren't going to commit suicide, but they were really depressed. And they keep saying to me, you got me through a terrible time in my life. I didn't know that. I just thought my job was to learn the lines and bump into the monsters. But there was another kind of a deeper thing. And therefore, what we do is a wonderful thing. I met this very handsome, beautiful older woman once in the street, and she stopped me and she said, "You're an actor, aren't you?" And at that time, I hadn't really thought about much depth of what I did. And then I said, yes. She said, "Well, you and your fellow actors, you do this wonderful thing. For 2.5 hours, you give yourself and you take us away from our troubles and strife, and you transport us to another place." And I thought, do we? Oh, wow, that's nice. Anyway, biography, back to the biography. I don't know how we got there. But anyway, yes, that was... I gave up, anyway, doing the biography. But I have recorded an interview on kind of being filmed, been asked questions about it. And it's hopefully going to come out this year. And so they'll put bits of me in it, or what things I've done that are not too expensive to buy and put in. And so something's coming out hopefully about that. And then if that's okay, then a book might come out after that. By then I'll be 83 if I can remember my name. A book will come out.
Well, here we are back in the shed. Another ramble is at an end. And Sylvester McCoy, thank you so much for coming with us, especially because it is the first time we have rambled without the president. So to have you with us really has meant an awful lot. Have you enjoyed your ramble?
I have. I hope I haven't rambled on too much, though. Rambling.
Oh, you can never ramble too much on this podcast, ever. So no, thank you very much.
Thank you. No, it was lovely.
Thank you. And thank you all for listening at home. We really hope you enjoyed this week's meeting of the Rambling Club.
Now, the club meets every Friday, but if you'd like to get in touch in the meantime, here's how you can find your fellow members.
The show's official website is at www.tonyslattery.com, and you can get in touch on the contact form on that website.
We're at Twitter at Slattery Live. Please do use the hashtag TSLC to discuss the week's topics.
I'm on Twitter too, at Paul Carmichael V. And I know, Sylvester, you are on Twitter at 4, that's the number 4, at 4 Sylvester McCoy.
I didn't even know that.
There you go, we learn something every day. And you can
pick up all kinds of bits and pieces on this program.
Yes. And you can also find us on Blue Sky at Slattery Live, and I'm on Blue Sky as well.
And the show also has a Facebook group at facebook.com/group/TheTonySlattery.
And you can find us on Instagram at Tony_Slattery_official.
But if people want to join the Rambling Club for themselves, Paul, how do they do that?
Well, Alan, what they do is they head to www.patreon.com/Slattery Live, and we'd be delighted to welcome you. The club is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you can find some lovely perks there for members.
So please do get in touch with us by any of those methods. We'd be thrilled to hear from you.
We really would, and we will be back for another ramble next Friday at 5 to 5. But until then, it's a goodbye from me, Paul Carmichael. It's a goodbye from Mr. Alan Lear.
Goodbye.
And it's a goodbye from me, Sylvester McCoy.
You have been listening to Tony Slattery's Rambling Club with our special guest president, Sylvester McCoy. It was accompanied by E. Stephen Fry as the voice of the bingo machine. Acting President McCoy was assisted by E. Paul Carmichael and Alan Lear. The music was composed and performed by E. Michael Livesley and Andy Frizzle. Silly voices are by E. Michael Livesley and the show's concept is by E. Paul Carmichael. Our producers are Stuart Morris and Alan Dybing, and the show's series producer is Erica Lear. Our executive producer is Chris Castle, and the series executive producer is Mark Strickson. Tony Slattery's Rambling Club is a Fanfanital production.
Goodbye, and thank you for listening.